called de Grauwe. The British Prime Minister, David Cameron, will not enter the history books as an enlightened leader. However, when in 2014 he had to decide to allow the Scottish referendum, he used his brain and opened the door for the referendum. It took place on October 14, 2014. Only 45% of the Scots voted for independence. The contrast with the referendum in Catalonia could not be greater. The Spanish Prime Minister Rajoy stupidly decided to use violence to prevent a referendum in Catalonia, despite the fact that a peaceful referendum would most probably have led to a similar outcome as in Scotland. Spain and Catalonia are now on collision course of situation that could have been avoided if the Spanish Prime Minister had not suffered from dogmatism and a degree of nationalism equaling in intensity the Catalan version. The Catalan nationalists now have been given a fantastic boost thanks to Rajoy's stupidity. The TV images of Spanish robotic police officers hitting old and young to prevent them from voting create a perception of an oppressed people fighting for their freedom. Nothing could be further from reality. The Catalans are not an oppressed people. They have a high degree of autonomy. They can organize their own education in their own language. No obstacles exist for the cultural development of Catalonia. It is the most prosperous region of Spain. Barcelona is a bustling city like no other in Spain. The Catalans are heard at the regional, national and European level. The image of an oppressed people is ludicrous. Catalan nationalism is of the same kind as British nationalism that led to Brexit. It is based on a number of myths. The first myth is that there is an external enemy. For the Brexiteers, these are the European authorities, the European Commission, the European Court, etc., which impose their arbitrary will on Britain. For the Catalan nationalists, the enemy is the Spanish government oppressing the Catalan people. The second myth is that the people who fight for their independence have a clearly defined identity. The task of national politicians is to listen to the will of the people. There can be only one voice. There is no room for different and opposing voices. The British government is now calling for patriotism. The opponents of Brexit are not true patriots. The third myth is that independence will generate unsuspected economic prosperity. When the people take back control, they will have the tools to achieve maximum economic prosperity. That is today the argument of Brexiteers like Boris Johnson. When Brexit will be realized, preferably as soon as possible, Britain will have achieved its true destiny. Global Britain will take over from the protectionist EU. Great Britain will merrily conclude free trade agreements with the rest of the world, which will lead to unprecedented prosperity. A similar argument of more prosperity for an independent Catalonia is heard from Catalan nationalists today. The reality is that globalization undermines national sovereignty. This happens in many ways. One example. Large multinationals blackmail national governments in Europe, with the result that corporate taxes decline almost everywhere. In no country, however, is there a will of the people in favor of reducing these taxes. Yet this is the outcome, because governments act as national entities. Were they to decide jointly on corporate taxes in Europe, multinationals would be unable to blackmail these governments, and there would be no creeping decline in corporate taxes. Another example. International trade today is not influenced so much by tariffs, but by non-tariff barriers. Large countries decide about standards and the regulatory environment that will govern trade. There are now essentially three countries, the US, the EU and China, that can aspire to decide about the nature of these standards and rules. The other countries play no role in this game. Thus, when Great Britain exits from the EU so as to gain more sovereignty to take back control, this gain is only formal. In fact, its real sovereignty declines. Obviously, the same holds for Catalonia. We arrive at the following paradox: in a globalized world, when nationalists pursue more formal sovereignty, they achieve less real sovereignty of the people. They want to take back control, and they end up with less control. That's what Great Britain will end up with. That's also what the Catalan nationalists will achieve if they pursue their nationalistic dreams. This paradox has a corollary. When countries in Europe renounce formal sovereignty, this leads to more real sovereignty of the peoples of Europe. This article originally appeared on the author's blog.